BBC News.
Well, the Spirit of Chartwell is currently moored at Canary Wharf in East London. Let's go there now and speak to the Royal Historian, Dr. Kate Williams. Dr. Williams, thank you for joining us. What do you make of the design?
Well, I think it's incredible. I think what's so exciting is it really evokes the history. Britain is this great maritime nation. This is going to be really extravagant. There's gold, there's velvet, the red. I mean, it's really going to be the centrepiece of the Jubilee celebration. So I think it's marvellous that we really are celebrating how we are an island nation in our Jubilee.
And royal pageants in general, just looking back through time, what were they for? What was the aim?
Well, we've had some big royal pageants, particularly on the Thames. Of course, particularly in the old days, it was because people arrived on the Thames if they were coming from overseas. The big royal pageant in the past is that of Charles II and Catherine of Braganza. When Catherine of Braganza arrived, Charles's wife, she was greeted with this gigantic pageant on the Thames because she was sailing down, and it was, so magical that even John Evelyn, rather hardened diarist, thought it was magical and mythical and beautiful, the most triumphant spectacle he'd ever seen. So they really were a signal of big triumph, and they were also to really show people travelling through and the beginning of a great royalty. There's one that wasn't quite so auspicious, and that's the crowning of Anne Boleyn. She also travelled in a huge pageant on the River Thames. And I think what we've got here is the Queen and the Duke of Edinburgh really evoking that history, the idea that the Queen, the King, they are partly coming to Britain, and London is such an important river nation.
It does seem quite flamboyant, though, the design. Just looking at the barge behind you now and what it will become, what do you make of the flamboyance of it?
Well, it's incredibly flamboyant. It's going to be really extravagant. It's really quite hard to imagine, I think. It seems like it's going to out-bling the gold coach. I mean, we're going to get a lot of bling anyway in the Jubilee. I mean, there's a lot of diamond, there's going to be a lot of gold. But this seems as if it's going to be really quite incredible. And I think it's going to be quite a big moment. It's going to be quite a kind of big splash of colour in austerity Britain next year.
We thought we'd lost you there, but you are back. Good. Now, in times of austerity, though, how does this all sit? I know it's the Jubilee and it's a very important thing to mark, but how do you think this sits? And historically, how will it sit?
Well, I think that's a very important question, Maxine. I think the palace are really considering that, because historically royalty really has a difficult road to travel, because on one hand we don't want them to spend too much and be too excessive. We don't want Russian oligarchs, and on the other hand we actually want people to be quite pompous, quite glorious, quite exciting. And this is particularly important at the moment when, as we've seen, it looks like next year is going to be a very hard year for the British public, very difficult. Can we cope with seeing the British royal family spending huge amounts on their pageant? And I think this is a difficult question, but what we also want to show is that the Queen, well, she's been on the throne for so long now, 60 years, and we've had boom times, we've had poor times, we've had, really difficult times. When we think of the Queen's royal wedding, it wasn't going to be a bank holiday because that was thought it would ruin the economy too much. We are going to have bank holidays this year, and I think the idea is really that the Queen, we're celebrating all of the Queen's reign, the difficult times, the great times, and in the hope also that the Diamond Jubilee is going to bring in a lot of money to the economy like the royal wedding did, and really provide us with a big boost. That's, I think, what we're hoping for.
Dr. Kate Williams, thank you. Now let's pause.